The Seventh Tower by Garth Nix. Book 1, The Fall. Chapter 7. Tal had never been into the Violet, the highest and most private levels of the castle, save the towers. He was surprised to find that it was really no different than any of the other levels. There seemed to be fewer people around, and not all of them were members of the Violet Order. Tal carefully bowed and gave them light anyway, just to be safe. He almost bowed to an underfolk servant and caught himself just in time. The only problem was, now that Tal was on the 7th level of the Violet Order, he didn't know where to find the Empress. After wandering around the most obvious corridors, he finally plucked up the courage to ask a Brilliance of the Indigo, who didn't seem in too much of a hurry, and whose spirit shadow was not too frightening. Tal didn't know what it was, but it had 4 legs, a tail, and a head, and wasn't showing lots of teeth. This was a big improvement over some of the horrendous spirit shadows he'd seen. "The Empress?" replied the Brilliance. He seemed more amused than annoyed that an orange boy should ask him such a question. "You seek an audience, I suppose?" "Yes," said Tal. His shadow guard nodded too. The Brilliance laughed. Tal wasn't entirely sure why. Then he gave Tal directions to the outer antechamber and to the Imperial Guard. They would decide whether or not to let Tal in. Tal thanked the Brilliance properly, bowing deeply and giving light. The Brilliance was equally courteous, but he laughed again as Tal walked away. Without the directions, Tal would never have found the outer antechamber. He had to go through several empty rooms and up some more stairs, leading him even higher than the 7th Violet. Finally, he came to a much larger room, where several people were lounging about on chairs, drinking and talking. All their talk stopped as Tal came into the room. Their spirit shadows leaped up at once, and so did 2 of the Chosen. They were all of the Violet Order, Tal saw, but he didn't recognize the insignia they wore. They each had violet bands on their white robes, and wore gold bracers with blazing suns on them, chains of gold filigree, and many sunstones. Strangely, their spirit shadows were all the same, which was unusual, except in the case of twins or very close siblings. The spirit shadows were tall, vaguely man-like creatures, but very broad-shouldered and with impossibly thin waists, almost like spinning tops. They had no necks, and their broad heads seemed to be largely made up of enormous mouths. They also had 4 arms. It wasn't until Tal saw that all the Chosen were wearing swords that he realized this must be the Imperial Guard that the Brilliance had told him about. Or some of them, anyway. Tal bowed and offered light. His shadow guard sat at his feet, once again assuming the shape of an inoffensive Datu. "I am Ethar, guardian of Her Majesty, Shadow Lord of the Violet," said one of the guards, a tall woman who looked about the same age as Tal's mother. "What are you doing here?" Tal straightened up from his bow, but still kept his eyes down at the floor. Suddenly he had a feeling that this was not his brightest idea. There was no one else here, apart from the guards. Maybe he should have gone somewhere else. Maybe the Indigo Brilliance had played a trick upon him. I wanted to see the Empress," Tal stuttered. The deluminance on his wrist jangled as he spoke, reminding him how close he already was to demotion to the Red, or worse. Perhaps he had just earned more deluminance by coming here. "You want to see the Empress?" Ethel repeated grimly. She strode over to Tal so she was looking down at him, her spirit shadow close by, its 4 arms already stretching out as if it might grab Tal at any moment. "Yes," said Tal. "I wanted to ask her for a new sunstone for my family. We've lost our primary sunstone, you see, because my father is missing—" "What is your name?" Ethar interrupted. "Tal Grail Rarum," said Tal. "My father, Rarum, is a shiner of the 4th Circle. He was lost recently on a mission for the Empress." Out of the corner of his eye, Tal saw that Ethar recognized his father's name, at least, because she looked back at the other guards for a second. "So, Tal, why should we let you pass to see the Empress?" Why?" repeated Tal. "Because I need your help." All the guards laughed at that, and Ethar took a step back, no longer so threatening. Her spirit shadow slid back too, decreasing in size until it lay at her feet. Tal let out a small sigh of relief. Whatever he'd said, they seemed friendlier now. "It's not as easy as that," Ethar explained. "If you want to see the Empress, you must first ask the seniors of your own order, and gain passes from them. I don't suppose you've done that." "No," said Tal glumly. He thought of Shadowmaster Sushin, Bright Star of the Orange Order. He would make sure Tal never got a pass. "I don't think they'd give me one." The guards laughed again at that. Tal felt suddenly more angry than scared. Why was it so funny that his family was in trouble, and he was doing his best to help them? "Well, since you're already here," Ethel said, a smile slowly spreading across her face, "I suppose we could play a game. If you win, we'll let you past. If you lose, you can... let me see... give me your sunstone." "What game?" whispered Tal. This was a chance, it seemed. But if he lost his sunstone, he would lose his shadow guard. He would no longer be a chosen. He would have to join the underfolk. Ethar pointed to a side table between two guards. Tal recognized the tabletop at once, for it was designed to be a game board. There was a row of 7 rectangles cut into it around one half of the rim, a round circle of white marble in the middle, and another row of rectangles on the other side. A deck of large pasteboard cards was on the circle of white marble. "Beastmaker," said Ethar. "Do you accept the challenge?" Tal knew how to play Beastmaker, though the sets were rare, since no one knew how to make either the cards or the battle circle any more. But Great-Uncle Ebbet had a set, and Tal had played quite often. Much more often than anyone would suspect of an orange boy. "Yes," said Tal, knowing that with one word he had sealed his fate. He would go on to see the Empress, or he would go down to join the underfolk. Everything depended on a single game of Beastmaker.